In this video, we will see how to link Revit models and DWG files into an existing project. We'll also see how to manage those links when the models update and need reloading. Being able to link Revit models and DWG files into a project allows us to split more complex projects into smaller, separate models that are easier to manage. It also makes it easier to collaborate with other consultants, such as structural or civil engineers, by allowing us to reference their data direct into our models. Let's begin by opening the file Site Model. And in this file, we have the topography for our project. We also have a linked-in model already, so this is the Studio block, which has been created as a separate Revit model and linked into the current site project here. We have another block, the Residence block, that we need to link in. And we can see that on the site it's at a slightly lower level than the Studio block, and therefore having these two blocks as separate models makes it easier to manage those when we're developing the project. Before we link the model in, we'll go to the site plan view, and here we can see the coordinate markers for our Revit project. At the bottom of the view we can see the internal origin point, which is represented by the red and green triangles. We also have the project base point, which is in the same location currently and is represented by the blue circle. Further up the screen we have the survey point, which is represented by the blue triangle, and this is the origin for our shared coordinates that makes it easier when we need to collaborate with external consultants. Selecting our linked Studio block project, we can also see the internal origin and coordinate points for that project and how they relate to the ones that are in our current project. To link in the Residence block, we'll go to the Insert ribbon tab. From the Link panel, we'll choose Link Revit. We'll choose the Residence model, and then at the bottom of the screen here we can see we have options for positioning. It's currently set Auto Internal Origin to Internal Origin. And this means that the two internal origin points within the linked model and the current model would be aligned, and that would set the position. We have options to align the center of the models, which would just find the center of the Residence model and place it in the center of our site. We can choose shared coordinates, which would line up the survey points, or we can choose to align it via the project base points, which would align the project base points in both files. We also have options to place it manually, and we can choose our origin point within the linked file, such as its internal origin or its base point, and then place that down manually once it's inserted into the file. We'll leave it set to Auto Internal Origin to Internal Origin, and we'll choose Open, and the linked project will be placed into our file. We can zoom in here and we can see the internal origin of the linked model in grey here aligning with the internal origin of our current project, which is in the red and green arrows. We can select the linked model and then move it away from its current position, and as it's a linked model it moves en masse and we can see the coordinates moving with it. We need to align it into the correct location, so whilst it's still selected, first we'll choose Rotate from the Modify ribbon and we'll rotate it through 90 degrees. Next we'll use the Align tool to get it into the correct location. However, in our site plan we're actually looking at the roof at the moment, and we need to use the floors within the project itself to align to, so first we'll go to the Site Level Datum view. So this view is cut at a lower level, and therefore we're seeing the inside of our linked project, and this will make it easier for us to align. From the Modify ribbon tab, we'll choose the Align tool. We'll start by choosing the top of the slab here and then the slab that's in our linked model. Next we'll choose the face of the retaining wall, and then zooming in we have the face of the retaining wall in the linked project, and these two should line up. And now we can see that that's got that in the correct location and it aligns with the Studio project above. We'll go back to the 3D view, and orbiting round we can see that it's actually floating in the air a little bit, and this means that we have to now align it vertically so we get it at the correct height for our site. So we'll go to the east elevation, and zooming in we can see the project and we can see that it's above the ground here. We have the levels within our Residence project, so we have the first floor, second floor and roof. And in our current project we have a Residence first floor level, and this is the one we'll use to align the linked model with to set it at the correct height within the site. So from the Modify menu, we'll choose the Align tool. We'll start by choosing the residence first floor level in the site project. And then we'll come to our linked project and we'll choose the first floor level inside the linked project. So we'll put that at the correct height. We'll close the padlock to create a constraint between the two levels, meaning that if we do adjust the residence first floor level in our site project, the linked model will also move. We'll choose Modify to finish the Align tool, and we'll go back to the 3D view. And now we can see that we have our residence block at the correct height. As these are linked models, we have the option to manage those links. So we'll go back to the Insert Ribbon tab, and from the Link panel we can choose Manage Links. And then we're looking at the Revit Links tab, and we can see the two models, the residence and the studio model, that we have linked in. With one of these selected, below we can see that we have the option to remove if we want to take it out of the project. But equally we can unload and reload. This means that it will be unloaded from the project and not visible in any of the views. However, we can reload it and it will come back into the exact same position and it won't need to be realigned. We also have the option to reload from, and we can use this if we get an updated version of the model. So I'll choose our residence model and then choose Reload From. And here we can see we have the residence model that we originally loaded. But now we also have a Revision A version of the residence model, which has had changes made to it. So we'll open this one up. And now that's been loaded in, we can see it has a different name in the link name here. We'll choose OK. And now we can see that the residence model is updated to have the glazed roof light in this current version. However, it's maintained its position as we aligned it previously. Going back to the site plan view, we have some civil engineering data that we'd like to link in, and this is in the form of a DWG. So from the Insert Ribbon tab, on the Link panel, we have the option to link CAD. And we also have the option on the Import panel to import CAD. And the difference between the two is that the linked CAD can be unloaded and reloaded as necessary, whereas the imported CAD is fixed within the Revit model. We'll choose to link the CAD drawing in. And here we can see the Home Studio Site Plan DWG that we need to link. Looking at the import options, we can change the colours of the DWG. So currently it's drawn in red and purple, etc. We can force that to be black and white, or invert those colours to make them easier to read on our white Revit background. We'll leave them set to preserve. We can choose which layers to bring in with the DWG, either all layers, only those that are visible within the file, or we can specify exact layers. I'll set this to visible. Then we have import units. So auto detect will look inside the DWG to determine its units, and we'll set the scale factor accordingly. We can specify an exact unit or a custom scale factor if we prefer, but for this file auto detect will be the best option. We'll leave correct lines that are slightly off axis checked, as this helps to reduce the number of warnings that we get when working with DWGs. And then we have the positioning of the DWG. It's currently set to be auto origin to internal origin, and we can choose center to center, use the shared coordinates, or manually place it via the origin or the center of the DWG. I'll choose the origin to internal origin option. We'll place it at the site level datum level. So we'll choose open, and then the DWG will be brought into our file. We'll zoom out to see where it's located. As we can see, the DWG has been drawn away from the actual Revit origin points here. So we'll need to move it back into the correct location. So we'll select it, and because we've placed it origin to origin, it has automatically been pinned, so we'll need to unpin this before we can move it. And now we've done that, we'll choose move, and then we can zoom in and select a point within our DWG, and then we can come and snap to the equivalent point in our Revit model. So now we can see that that DWG has been placed in the correct location relative to our Revit model. And we can see the roadway being brought in, and also the extra works that we need to apply into our topo surface. Looking in the 3D view, we can see the 2D lines in the DWG that have been placed at that site datum level. So although it's 2D line work, we can still use this within Revit. So I'll go to the Massing and Site ribbon tab, and I'll create a building pad. And then from our draw tools here, I'll change it to pick lines. We can then use the lines in the DWG to pick from. So I'll hover over this one and press the tab key to select the chain. And do the same on this side. Very quickly we can trace the line work within the DWG to create the objects that we require in our Revit model. So we'll choose Finish Edit mode, and that pad has now been created, traced around the lines in the DWG. We'll come and set the height offset from level to be -2 feet to set it down at the correct level. The DWG can also be managed in the same way as the Revit links. So from the Insert ribbon tab, we can choose Manage Links once more. And from the CAD Formats tab, we can see we have the DWG file, and we have the same options to unload, reload, reload from. And we also have an option to convert it to an imported CAD file, which would mean the link would be broke from the original DWG, and it would be permanently imported into our file.
So we'll choose OK, and we can see now that we have a completed site model made up from our linked files.
So that ends this video. And to recap, in this video, we've seen how to link Revit models and DWG files into an existing project. And we've also seen how to manage those links when the models update and need reloading.